Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So, you guys I'm sure could tell in the intro montage, I'm tearing apart the Mark IV. And it is for good measure. So I'm converting the car currently back to street mode, as we still have a little bit until race season kicks off around here. And we have nice weather upcoming, so I want to be able to take the car out and drive it and cruise it in a reasonable manner. And as cool as the fender exit is, I don't feel like giving myself a migraine headache just for the sake of going out and cruising. So I went ahead and pulled down all of the street mode exhaust components, the Inconel downpipe, the 4.5-inch dual muffler street exhaust system, Inconel wastegate recirculation tubes, and I pulled off the carbon fender that's provisioned for the fender exit, all of that. Now that this is all disassembled, I'm ready to go ahead and start putting the street mode parts back onto the car as soon as I clean them up. So these parts have been sitting up on the shelf for a little while, and they are quite grimy. So all these need to be cleaned up before they go back on the car, and I need to clean the car itself as well, as it's been sitting in the shop throughout the process of doing all of the construction work with the structure behind me. So it is a bit dusty and dirty and grimy as well. So I have a few days before I'm planning on taking this thing out, but I just wanted to get a jump start on this first, so that way I'm not rushing last minute or anything like that. So without me running my suck any longer, let's go ahead, get these parts cleaned, get them on the car, and get ready to take this thing out. After a day's worth of work, the Supra is now swapped over to street mode. So that entails swapping the passenger fender, I guess pulling the whole front end apart, swapping the passenger fender, swapping the fender exit for the downpipe, swapping the 2 atmospheric dump tubes for these recirculated ones, and then installing the full exhaust. So all of that work is done at this point in time, and it was nice to hear it with the full exhaust on again after, for the entire duration of winter, it's been sitting here and I've been running it with the fender exit. Now, the fender exit sounds cool, but the street exhaust is much more civilized, and it's much more enjoyable to sit here and listen to, rather than having the shop just be a cacophony of different noises, or a symphony, or just depends on how you look at it. But the street mode swap is done at this point in time, but there's still a few things that need to be done and addressed on the car before I'm ready to go take it out. So it needs a full clean, and it needs a full detail, and I put quotation marks around that as I just kind of spit shine this thing. But that needs to be done, and I have a new part that needs to be installed on it as well. So we will get to that for me tomorrow, but for you guys in a few seconds. But for now, I'm going to get out of here, go to dinner, and we will reconvene tomorrow. Today, I'm going to focus my efforts on installing the new part, or parts that I have for the Mark IV. So this is a pretty neat part that's made by a buddy of mine named Ryan Jackson. And what we have here is an EGR block-off plate that also serves as a way to house a race-grade TC8. So pretty much no design element went unturned with this. It is aesthetically pleasing. And then on the back side of it, it has the provisioning to block off the exhaust side of the EGR right here, as well as in the bag of fasteners and assortments that he sent with it, this copper O-ring. It has a normal, probably a Viton O-ring right there that goes over on the intake side. He labeled it or engraved it on the back side, which I think is a pretty cool touch. And then it also places the TC8 on these rubber dampers. So that way any vibrations or anything like that that are making their way through the engine don't get transmitted directly into sensitive electronics. So pretty easy, pretty simple. The TC8 just sits on these mounting stanchions like so. He included these nuts that you can either tighten by hand, or they have a star pattern on the inside of it. It's like a Torx, but not quite. Those of you guys who are better with fasteners than me may know exactly what it is. But I can also get an Allen key, or a hex key in there rather, to tighten these down fully. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to fit this, as on the back side of the cylinder head on this car, it's kind of tight confines with all of the fuel lines running right through there. But we'll see what happens, and hopefully I can make this fit, as I really would like to use this part, as it's a way better option to mount the TC8 than what I was doing previously. Well, I got the combo EGR block-off TC8 mounting plate installed on the back of the Mark IV's cylinder head. And there's almost no chance you'll be able to see it. The only real telltale is down there, maybe, if you can see the little bit of one of the thermocouple wires there. But trust me that it is on the back of the head. And with my particular setup, it was a difficult install. If you were doing this on a normal or more traditional Supra setup, wouldn't be any big deal. But the reason that it was difficult on this one is because of all of the lines for the fuel surge tank. Now, pretty much all of the space behind the cylinder head is occupied by these lines, and I had to figure out a way to fit that plate and the TC8 and everything else back there. But I got it done without having to make new lines or do anything too crazy. Just some a little bit chewed up hands and a few swear words, but it's all good now, and it's one less thing that needs to be done before Sunday. Since the Mark IV is mechanically sound and ready to go out on its drive, and I don't exactly want to clean it just yet, as I still have some work to do here, and I don't want to clean it just to have it get dirty again, we're going to shift focus back to the Mark II for a little bit. And I've had a couple of pretty cool parts come in for it that will allow me to knock out the next portion of this build. They're sitting right on the floor here. Let's take a look at them. So what we have right here are a couple of cores, heat exchanger cores from my friends over at Bell Intercoolers. So on the left, we have a 3.5-inch intercooler core, and on the right, we have the new radiator core. So the radiator is going to wait. That will be in an upcoming episode, and I will instead focus my efforts on the intercooler, as it's a little bit simpler, and I don't have to get quite as elaborate with the mounting system or anything like that. So just a once over, this is a tube and fin radiator core. It has Bell's new flat header panel on it, and this is a vertical flow radiator that I dimensioned, or that I got dimensioned very close to the existing radiator that was in the car previously. Now this is an aluminum core, so it will be a little bit more efficient with its actual heat exchanging capabilities and heat sink capabilities for that matter. And they always do a beautiful job with these, and I cannot wait to weld it together. But like I said, this will be in an upcoming episode, and instead we'll focus on the intercooler right now. In addition to the cores, I also went ahead and got the materials for the intercooler end tanks. So that is what all of this aluminum sheet is right here. These are 3.5-inch wide sections, 48 inches long. And these are 3-inch wide, 11 inches long. And all of this is 1/8 inch thick. If you guys have been around for any duration of time on the channel or seen me build intercoolers in the past, you know that I will choose my end tank thicknesses based off of the duty that the part will see. Now something like the Mark IV that will see much more boost than this car. I mean, this thing, we dynoed it right around 40 pounds of boost, and at the track, I won't be surprised if we see 50, 60, 70, something along those lines. With that in mind, the higher pressure that you are running through an intercooler, the thicker the end tanks should be. Looking at the construction of it, you have a large flat panel, and there's pretty much no way to avoid having that. And the thinner that the material that you make the end tank out of is, the more likely you are to have it swell and balloon and potentially rupture. Conversely, with something like the Mark II that, I don't know, I mean, we might run 10 or 15 pounds of boost with this thing. The point being, it's something that is not as extreme duty and extreme usage as this. I can get away with much thinner intercooler end tanks, and normally for like the Mark IV, I use 3/16 sheet metal for the end tanks on that. For the Mark II, we're using 1/8 inch, and that will still be a little bit overkill, but I like to side on that, or I like to hedge on that side of overkill with anything like an intercooler. But it won't be complete overkill, it'll be a little bit easier to weld. So with all of the talking aside and all of the theorizing aside, let's go ahead, put the intercooler core, or mock it up in place on the Mark II, and start taking some actual finite dimensions for the end tanks so I can start cutting. The Mark II is now the proud owner of a brand new intercooler. So it isn't sitting exactly perfect or level in here right now, but this at least gives you an idea of what the front end of the car is going to look like. And the intercooler came out okay. I'm not incredibly happy with the vertical welds, and I'm going to make some changes to my welding and building process for intercoolers moving forward to try to remedy that. The parts that I'm not happy with are areas like this right here, where you can see decent bead and then kind of a glob right there where my index finger is. And that is left over from when I tacked the tanks to the core. Now, I normally will space the tanks off of the core, as trying to weld through an intercooler core and through the material that you're using for the end tanks can be difficult if your intent is to achieve full penetration. That's my intent when I'm building these, so I space them off. And I've been spacing them a little bit too far. So when I went and applied my tack right there, it got a little bit globby, and there isn't a good way to knock it down or blend it. So there's a couple of those globby sections, and I'll just have to live with it at this point in time. It isn't perfect, but it will do its job perfectly fine. Now, you may also notice that I did not terminate the inlet and outlet of the intercooler. I'm going to wait to do that until I can determine how exactly I want to run the intercooler tubing, and then at that point I can actually put tube stubs on and everything will be good that way. But at least for right now, the intercooler, as I bump the jack with my foot, but the intercooler is in place, and I could have gone a little bit wider with it, but the height is nearly perfect and the thickness is about the max that I'm able to fit in here as well. It's really close to the AC lines on the top here, and it's really close to the bumper skin down below. So I did my best to maximize the space for this intercooler. I think I did a good job achieving that spatial maximization, and now all that needs to be done is to mount the intercooler. Well, we have a little bit of a change of plans for the final portion of this video. So I had every intent to come in today and clean the Mark IV up and get it ready to go out on a drive tomorrow. And yesterday, as I was working, I had a little bit of a sore throat and figured, hey man, maybe it can just be allergies or something along those lines. And then I woke up this morning feeling like I got hit by a 1-ton truck. And I don't know if I have a little bit of the flu or something like that, but the last thing that I want to do at this point in time is sit and spit shine this thing and then go through all the rest of the chores that are required just to take it out and go for a drive. So, unfortunately, won't be doing that in this episode, but there will still be nice weather coming, and we can go and do that sooner rather than later. The one thing I did knock out yesterday that I guess I can show you guys is, if you'll notice, there are no more TIG filler rod holders leaning up against the wall. I made this rack/bracket deal that houses all of my filler rod. I had some extra material from the Mark II's intercooler and figured what better use for it than to make something like this. So I'll try it in this orientation. If I don't like it or if it gets in the way, then I can always move that rack onto the wall or something like that. I apologize if you guys really wanted to see the Mark IV out. I really did as well. I was really looking forward to this drive, but it feels like my head is in a vice and somebody injected pain into just about every one of my joints. And not trying to be a weakling or a wuss or anything, but it's just kind of the way that it is. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and wrap this one up so I can get out of the shop and go and rest. So thank you guys, as always, for tuning in, for coming on all these different journeys with me, all these different adventures. A huge thank you to the folks over at Bell Intercoolers for making the Mark II's new intercooler possible, and in short order, having made the new radiator possible. So if you guys need cores for any heat exchanger project, or Davies Craig water pumps, or I think they have a litany of other things, Spall fans as well, please don't hesitate to reach out to Bell. They've always taken care of me, and I assure you they will do the same for you. We have a lot of things to look forward to still with the Mark II project. Like I said, we're still in the middle of fabrication work right now. Get the intercooler wrapped up soon, work on the radiator, and finish up all the rest of the fab work, and get this car ready to go and have Russ do his handiwork with electrical distribution, I'll say. But that'll be later on. Right now, I'm going to get out of here and go pass out on the couch. So that'll be about the end of this one. So as always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, check out the website for manifolds, for merch, for all things good that way. And I will see you all in the next episode.